Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The first thing people noticed about us was how close we stood to each other. Not just physically, though that too. My husband, Ethan, always had a habit of resting his hand on the small of my back, like he was quietly reminding the world that I was his. Sometimes his fingers would trace slow circles there while we talked to friends, and I'd pretend to be annoyed, even though the warmth of his touch made my heart race every time. "Stop," I'd whisper with a smile. "You love it," he'd reply, leaning closer so only I could hear him. And he wasn't wrong. Our relationship had always been intense, curious, playful, sometimes a little daring. Ethan loved observing people, moments, emotions. It was why he carried his camera everywhere. To him, life was a collection of stories waiting to be captured. But lately, I had begun to notice something different in the way he looked at me. Not just love. Something deeper. Something almost obsessive. One night, after dinner, we sat together in the soft glow of the living room lights. His camera rested on the table beside us. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, studying me the same way he studied a photograph he wanted to take. "You trust me, right?" he asked quietly. I laughed. "Of course I do." But he didn't laugh back. Instead, he reached for the camera and turned it slowly in his hands, like he was building up the courage to say something that had been living in his mind for a long time. "There's an idea I've been thinking about," he said. My curiosity sparked immediately. Ethan's ideas usually meant adventure, surprises, something different. I crossed my legs on the couch and leaned closer, brushing my shoulder against his. "What kind of idea?" I teased. His eyes met mine, darker now, more serious. "The kind," he said slowly, "that might change the way we see each other." My smile faded just slightly. Not from fear. From anticipation. Because in that moment, I realized something important about my husband. Ethan didn't just love me. He was fascinated by me. And whatever he was about to ask. I had the strange feeling that once he said it, there would be no going back. For a moment, neither of us moved. The quiet between us felt heavier than before, like the room itself was leaning in to hear what Ethan would say next. I shifted closer on the couch, my shoulder pressing gently against his arm. He didn't pull away. If anything, he leaned into it, the familiar warmth between us returning, though now it carried something else, a quiet electricity. "You're doing that thing again," I murmured. His brow lifted slightly. "What thing?" "That look." I reached over and lightly tapped the side of his camera. "The one you get when you're about to turn life into one of your experiments." He smiled at that, but it was softer than usual. "Not an experiment," he said quietly. "More like an exploration." The word hung between us. I folded one leg beneath me and turned toward him fully now. Our knees brushed, and the contact made his fingers tighten slightly around the camera. "You realize you're being mysterious on purpose," I said. "Maybe." "Ethan." My voice carried a teasing warning, but my hand had already drifted to his arm, tracing along the sleeve of his shirt without thinking. He noticed. It showed in the way his breathing slowed. He always noticed. "You remember when we first met?" he asked suddenly. I laughed softly. "You mean when you insisted on taking a picture of me before you even knew my name? You looked like a moment worth capturing." "And now?" His eyes didn't leave mine. "Now I know I was right." The sincerity in his voice made my chest tighten. He lifted the camera slightly, not aiming it yet, just holding it between us. "You're fascinating when you don't realize someone is watching," he said. My eyebrow rose. "That sounds slightly suspicious." "It's honest," he replied. A quiet smile tugged at my lips, but curiosity was growing stronger now. Ethan had always been playful, but tonight felt different, more focused, more deliberate. "Okay," I said slowly. "You've officially made me curious enough that I can't sleep until you tell me what's going on." He leaned closer then, lowering his voice like he was about to share a secret meant only for me. "You trust me," he repeated. I studied his face carefully. The man sitting in front of me was still the same husband who made me coffee every morning, who kissed my forehead when he thought I was asleep. But there was also that intensity again, the one that made his ideas feel like doorways to somewhere unexpected. "Yes," I whispered. His thumb brushed lightly against my wrist. "Good," he said. Then he turned the camera on. The small red recording light flickered to life. And the way he looked at me after that made it clear. Whatever story he wanted to capture tonight, I was already standing at the center of it. The quiet red light on the camera blinked steadily, reflecting faintly in Ethan's eyes. For a second, I just stared at it. "You're actually recording?" I asked, half laughing. "Only if you're okay with it," he said quickly. "We can stop anytime." His voice sounded calm, but I could hear the tension underneath it. Ethan wasn't usually nervous around me. That alone made my curiosity grow stronger. I leaned back slightly against the couch cushion, crossing my arms with a playful look. "All right," I said. "Now you really have to explain yourself." He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck like he was organizing his thoughts. "You know, photography has never just been about pictures for me," he began. "It's about capturing real moments, honest reactions." I tilted my head. "And I'm the subject tonight." "You're always the subject," he said with a soft smile. The way he said it made my cheeks warm. I shifted closer again, my knee brushing his leg. His gaze flickered down for a moment before returning to my face. "But this isn't just about a photo or video, is it?" I said quietly. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "Ethan," I whispered, leaning forward slightly, lowering my voice so the moment felt almost secretive. "What are you really thinking about?" His fingers tightened around the camera. "I've noticed something about us," he said slowly. "And what's that?" "You trust me more than anyone." I chuckled softly. "That's usually how marriage works." "Yes, but it also means we're not afraid to explore things most couples wouldn't even talk about." Now my interest sharpened. "Explore what exactly?" I asked. For the first time since the conversation started, Ethan looked unsure. Not scared. Just vulnerable. "There's something I've been curious about for a long time," he said. "Something I've never told anyone." The room felt smaller suddenly. I reached out, lightly touching his hand that held the camera. "You can tell me," I said gently. He swallowed. "It's not about losing you," he said quickly. "I need you to understand that first." That sentence made my heartbeat pick up. Because people only say things like that when the idea they're about to share could change everything. His thumb brushed slowly against my fingers. "What if," he continued carefully, "we stopped pretending that attraction only exists inside our marriage?" My eyebrows lifted. "You mean?" "I mean being honest about curiosity," he said. "Not betrayal. Not secrecy. Curiosity." But the way he watched my reaction told me this idea had been living in his mind for a long time. I leaned back slightly, studying him with a mix of surprise and intrigue. "You've been thinking about this a lot," I said. He nodded once. The camera was still recording between us. And the strange thing was, part of me wanted to know exactly where this conversation might lead. The room felt unusually quiet after Ethan's words. Not the comfortable silence we were used to, but the kind that made every small movement feel louder than it should. I studied his face, searching for the playful grin he usually wore when teasing me. But it wasn't there. He meant every word. "Curiosity," I repeated softly. Ethan nodded once, his eyes never leaving mine. I shifted closer on the couch again without thinking. Our legs were touching now, the warmth between us familiar yet somehow different tonight. His free hand rested on the cushion beside me, only inches from my waist. "You're not angry," he said carefully. "Should I be?" I asked. "I didn't know how you'd react." I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice to match the secretive tone of the moment. "You've always had strange ideas," I teased. His shoulders relaxed just a little at that. "But this one," I continued, tracing a slow line with my finger along his arm, "feels bigger than your usual experiments." The camera was still sitting between us, its small red light blinking quietly. "Recording everything." Ethan noticed my glance toward it. "You want me to turn it off?" he asked. For a second, I considered it. But something about the moment, the vulnerability in his voice, the intensity in his eyes, made me shake my head. No, I said softly. His eyebrows lifted slightly. You're sure? I smiled faintly. You're the one who said you like real moments. A slow breath left his chest. The distance between us seemed to disappear as he leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper now. I've imagined conversations like this for a long time, he admitted. What kind of conversations? The kind where we stop pretending we don't notice things, he said. My heart beat faster. Notice what? The way people look at you, he said quietly. I blinked. What does that mean? You know exactly what it means, he replied. His tone wasn't jealous. If anything, it carried a strange mixture of pride and fascination. I shifted slightly, suddenly aware of how close we were. My shoulder brushed against his chest now, and neither of us moved away. You're saying you've been watching people watch me? I asked. Sometimes, he admitted. And that doesn't bother you? His gaze dropped briefly to my lips before returning to my eyes. Not the way you think. The answer sent a ripple of confusion and something else through me. You're being dangerously mysterious tonight, I whispered. His hand finally moved from the couch cushion, resting lightly against my side. The touch was gentle, but deliberate. I told you, he murmured, this idea could change the way we see each other. My breath caught slightly. Ethan, before I could finish the sentence, there was a sudden knock at the apartment door. Both of us froze. Ethan's eyes shifted toward the hallway, then back to me. And the look on his face told me one thing very clearly. He had been expecting that knock. The knock came again. 3 slow taps against the door. Neither of us moved at first. Ethan's hand was still resting at my side, his fingers lightly curled against the fabric of my shirt as if he had forgotten they were there. The warmth of his touch made my thoughts feel scattered. You were expecting someone, I said quietly. It wasn't a question. Ethan inhaled slowly. Yes. The answer landed between us like a dropped glass. My eyes searched his face, trying to read the emotions behind that calm expression. Excitement. Nervousness. Something else I couldn't quite name. You invited someone here? I asked. Another knock echoed through the apartment. He nodded once. My heart beat faster, not entirely from fear. There was something strangely electric about the moment, like standing on the edge of a decision that couldn't be undone. You said you trusted me, Ethan said softly. His voice had that same careful tone again, the one he used when he was revealing something deeply personal. I do trust you, I replied. Then come see what I mean. Before I could answer, he stood up from the couch and set the camera carefully on the coffee table. The red recording light still blinked, angled toward the living room like a silent witness. He reached his hand toward me. For a second, I hesitated. Then I took it. His fingers closed around mine with reassuring warmth, and together we walked toward the door. My pulse felt louder with every step. Ethan, I whispered before he opened it. You're really doing this? He glanced back at me. I'm only doing it if you want to. The sincerity in his eyes made my chest tighten again. Another knock. Closer this time. I took a slow breath. Open the door. Ethan turned the handle. The door swung open to reveal a man standing in the hallway, tall, casually dressed, maybe around our age. He looked relaxed, though his eyes flickered between us with curiosity. Hey, the man said, offering a polite smile. Ethan nodded toward him. Come in. The stranger stepped inside, the quiet hum of the apartment suddenly feeling different with a third presence in the room. This is Daniel, Ethan said calmly. Daniel gave me a friendly nod. Nice to meet you. I returned the greeting automatically, though my mind was still catching up with what was happening. Ethan closed the door behind him. The 3 of us stood there for a moment in the living room, the air thick with unspoken questions. Then Ethan's voice broke the silence. I told you earlier that I've been curious about something, he said, looking at me. I folded my arms lightly, half amused, half overwhelmed. You definitely said that. He gestured gently toward the camera on the table. And I told you I like capturing real moments. Daniel noticed the camera then, raising an eyebrow with mild surprise. "Should I be worried about that?" he joked. Ethan smiled faintly. "Only if you're uncomfortable." Daniel shrugged casually. "I'm fine." My gaze moved between the two men. "Okay," I said slowly. "Someone needs to explain the rest of this plan before my imagination runs too far." Ethan stepped closer to me again, his voice lowering so only I could hear the next words. "This isn't about replacing anything between us," he murmured. "Then what is it about?" I whispered back. His eyes held mine with that same intense fascination. Seeing how far trust can go. And the way he said it made me realize something surprising. The night hadn't just been planned. It had been carefully imagined. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The quiet inside the living room felt heavier now, like the air itself was waiting for someone to move first. Daniel stood near the door, hands loosely in his pockets, watching us with polite patience. Ethan stood beside me, close enough that I could feel the steady rise and fall of his breathing. My eyes moved to the camera on the coffee table. "Still recording." "You planned all of this," I said quietly. Ethan didn't deny it. "I imagined it," he corrected softly. The honesty in his voice made my pulse quicken again. "Why?" I asked. He turned toward me fully now, his attention narrowing until the rest of the room almost disappeared. "Because I wanted to see what happens when we stop pretending," he said. "When we trust each other enough to face the things we're curious about." His words weren't rushed. They carried the weight of someone who had thought about them for a long time. I folded my arms loosely, studying him. "And what exactly do you think is going to happen tonight?" Ethan's hand gently reached for mine again. "Whatever you choose." The answer surprised me. "You're giving me the decision." I always was. For the first time since Daniel arrived, I looked directly at him again. He gave a small, respectful nod, clearly aware he had stepped into something deeply personal. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel pressured. I felt powerful. My gaze returned to Ethan. "You've been watching people notice me," I said slowly. "Yes." And instead of getting jealous, I got curious. I stepped closer to him, our faces only inches apart now. "You realize most husbands wouldn't admit that." "I'm not most husbands." A small laugh escaped me. "No," I said softly. "You definitely aren't." The tension that had been building all night finally broke into something warmer. My hand slid up to his shoulder, pulling him into a close embrace. For a moment, the world shrank to just the two of us. Ethan rested his forehead lightly against mine. "See," he whispered. Nothing between us changed. But then I leaned back slightly, glancing toward the camera again. "Actually," I said with a small smile, "one thing did." He followed my gaze. The red recording light blinked steadily. "Now we have proof," I continued, "that our marriage might be the strangest one anyone's ever seen." Daniel chuckled quietly from across the room. Ethan laughed too, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. But just as the moment relaxed, the camera suddenly made a soft beep. Ethan frowned. "That's strange." "What is it?" I asked. He picked up the camera, eyes widening slightly as he checked the screen. "Well," he said slowly. "What?" He turned the display toward us. Apparently, the live stream setting was on. My heart skipped. "You mean?" Ethan nodded. "Someone might have been watching this entire conversation." For a few seconds, none of us said a word. The camera screen glowed faintly in Ethan's hands, while the three of us stared at it like it might suddenly explain itself. "You're joking, right?" I said slowly. Ethan shook his head, still studying the settings. "I thought it was recording locally," he muttered. "I must have switched modes earlier while testing." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck with an awkward laugh. "Well, that's one way to make a night memorable." Despite the shock, a nervous laugh escaped me too. The tension that had been building all evening suddenly cracked open, spilling into something lighter. "Please tell me thousands of people didn't just watch us have the most personal conversation of our lives," I said. Ethan finally lowered the camera. "Relax," he said with a small smile. "It only connects to my private photography account. Hardly anyone even knows it exists." I raised an eyebrow. Hardly anyone is not exactly comforting. Daniel chuckled quietly. You two are definitely the most interesting couple I've met. Ethan glanced at him apologetically. Sorry you got pulled into our experiment. Daniel shrugged. Honestly, I think what I witnessed was just two people being extremely honest with each other. That's rare. His words lingered in the room after he said them. After a moment, Ethan walked him to the door. They exchanged a quick handshake, and Daniel gave me one last friendly nod before stepping back into the hallway. Good luck, you too, he said. The door closed softly behind him. The apartment fell quiet again. But this time, the silence felt warm. Ethan turned back toward me, the camera still loosely in his hand. Well, he said. Well, I echoed. We both started laughing at the same time. Eventually, he set the camera down on the table and stepped closer. His hands rested gently at my waist, the familiar gesture grounding everything that had just happened. Did I scare you tonight? He asked. A little, I admitted. His expression softened. But I continued, sliding my arms around his shoulders. I also realized something. What's that? That trust isn't about avoiding strange conversations, I said. It's about being brave enough to have them. He smiled slowly. You always understand me better than anyone. I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. The whole night had been unpredictable, uncomfortable, exciting, and strangely beautiful. After a moment, he lifted my chin gently so I'd look at him again. No matter what ideas I come up with, he said quietly, you'll always be the center of my story. I smiled. And you'll always be the one holding the camera. Outside, the city lights flickered softly through the window. Inside, we stood close together, knowing that whatever strange adventures life brought next, we'd face them side by side.